Welcome to Chapter 3 of Soul of the Story. I am your guide, your host, Tyler Attico. I am here with the multi-talented Renaissance man, Mr. Matthew Jennings. Matt, how are you doing today?
Well, thank you for calling me a Renaissance man. I appreciate that.
Oh, absolutely, man. It's true. I mean, it's absolutely true. It's absolutely true. So how are you doing today?
You know what? I'm not gonna lie. It's a day. It is a
It's
day.
a day. Oh, it's a day.
It's a day.
It's a day.
But you know what? I'm here.
Right.
I'm here. I'm still here. I'm still alive. And I think for a lot of us, we're scared right now.
Right.
We don't know what's to come next year.
Right.
But I think the best way to resist is to continue to show up and be yourself.
That's really well put. That's really well said. And I've been speaking to a lot of people over the last 24 hours. A lot of people are like, well, I'm just going to keep my head down, and I know a lot of creators that are saying, well, I don't know if I want to still keep creating, and I don't know what's going to happen. And I've been thinking a lot about this myself, talking to friends, and it has occurred to me that during the civil rights movement, which is almost like what we are finding ourselves in today,
right.
But in a lot of ways. But during the civil rights movement of the '60s, there was a lot of these same themes, fighting for rights, fighting for justice. There was a lot of violence, and during all that, in the midst of that, Star Trek was created.
That's right.
Right?
Right. That's absolutely right.
Right? And so, you had this gentleman, Gene Roddenberry, and in the midst of all that, he's like, I want to push something else forward because, he's seeing all these things happening. He's seeing everything that's happening around, and he'd been around the world. He'd seen a lot. And, then, like now, you really, people are told, don't say certain things or don't speak certain things. But science fiction has always been that conduit to say things and to show people things and to be a message of things, right?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Right. And something I've always said is that what has given Star Trek its longevity, almost 60 years, is four fundamental, foundational, what I believe, foundational principles of Star Trek, which is science, exploration, friendship, and hope. And I think if we hold on to those four, specifically hope, if we hold on to that,
yes,
and not just in and through Star Trek, but in ourselves, and if we're creators, I think now is the time to create. Now is not the time to be fearful. Now is the time to create. Now is the time to double down on creating. Now is the time to be what James Baldwin said is that it's the responsibility of an artist to be a mirror to society.
Yeah.
But there's no reason you can't entertain while doing that.
And that's the truth. And you know what? I thank you for saying that, because that's confirmation for me, because I had those thoughts this morning where I was like, well, I mean, do I stop what I'm doing? Do I just go ahead and try to organize with my community, which I think is a good thing. But on the other hand, the other part of my mind was saying, okay, well, I guess acting's out. This is out. I just need to find other ways to do whatever, because I don't know what importance my voice is going to be.
Right.
If it's not a physically active, participation. But I thank you for those words, because that's my confirmation, and I needed to hear that.
Well, my pleasure. But that's what fear does, and that's what I had to remind myself, and friends reminded me. Fear controls first, and then it silences second. Right? And so I'm not playing that game. I'm doubling down. I've got some stuff that I'm working on. I got a novel that I'm working on. That I was like, this morning I was like, ooh, should I really do this novel in this environment? And I was talking to a friend of mine, and he was like, hell yeah, you should. And I was like, oh, you know what? Hell yeah, I should. I'm doubling down. Go forward. Tell those stories. Create. Because that's how we get to the futures that we all want to have, a future of diversity, a future of equality, a future for everyone,
Yeah.
for everyone, not just people that look a certain way or don't look a certain, for everyone. That's how we get there. And it usually does happen historically through stories in societies. People read these stories, and it helps the society move forward. So
Right.
yeah, man, just keep going. Not just me as a writer, you as an actor, but you write as well.
Yeah.
You direct, you produce, and we're here to talk about you. So I know we got into that because we have to, right? We have to. We
Yeah, we
can't.
gotta acknowledge it.
We
Have to be
have to acknowledge
authentic.
it, right? And you can't. That's another thing. You can't be silent about it and not acknowledge it.
Right, right.
But I want to celebrate you and talk about you. One of the
Thank
first things
you.
I want to absolutely one of the first things I wanted to ask you is when did that creative spark, first happen for you? And what was the spark? Was it acting? Was it writing? What was it? So can you just talk a little bit
Ooh.
about that?
That's a great question. I think what I always say is it started off with me kinda, like, goofing off on the playground and, speaking in, like, really bad English accents
Ah,
and quoting commercials and kids on the playground saying, "Matt, do that thing, do that thing, do the accent thing, do the
do that thing
whatever."
you do, right? Right.
Um, and then I wanna say from there, I don't know when I got started into or what the thought was in my head, but I decided that I was gonna audition for my first High School Musical, which was Bye Bye Birdie. Uh,
Wow.
and I got, like, a whole bunch of, like, little bit one-liners here and there, and kids would come up to me saying, "Oh, you got one line, you got a line here, you got a line there, that never happens. Ooh, ooh." Um, and I think after that show, because it was only 3 days, it was like a 3-day run, and in high school, I think they do it for, like, what is it? Thursday, Friday, and Saturday?
Saturday, yeah, that sounds right.
That's like the
Yeah,
run, that's
yeah.
that's your
Right,
run.
right. That's the run, right, right. I did some AD work in high school, so yeah,
Okay, see,
yeah, yeah,
so
yeah, yeah,
you
yeah,
were
yeah.
and I think after that, I wanted more,
Mm.
and so my mom and my dad, I think they realized that, I think he's serious about this, and if he's serious
Mm.
about this, then we gonna go all out. You're not
Right.
gonna do this half. So,
Nice, nice.
I remember my mom put me in a auditioning for the camera class, and my dad put me in, this class for kids for, like, movement, uh, musical theater, and acting, and it was at HB Studios. It's an acting studio in Greenwich Village in New York that I believe is still there.
Uh-huh.
And I went there back in 2019 as well, just a few years ago as well.
Wow.
But I
Nice.
went there for 2 or 3 summers during the summer vacations when I would go see my dad in New York. He's like, "Okay, let's get you in that class. Let's get you in that class." And, they were both very serious about, well, if you're going to pursue this, you're going to know the craft.
Right.
And,
Wow.
I think after that discipline that my parents put in me, it just continued on into college, getting my BA for theater arts performance in college. And then after that, after college, realizing, well, I have this space to
Hmm.
do these shows, to do these plays, and now I'm out in the real world. And I had this fear where I was like, oh, I'll never act again. So I tried to
Wow.
do everything I could: open mics, karaoke,
Oh, wow.
plays,
Right.
all of it, anything I could do.
So that reinforcement must have felt really great from your parents. You have this thing that you want to do, and then they feed into it and reinforce it. That must have been really amazing. Um, Let me ask you, because now, so you started high school, and then you said you went and did a little bit of everything. So I've been down. I had a little bit of a conversation with you about this when we were in Las Vegas, at Star Trek Las
Yeah.
Vegas. But I really am curious to find out, like, when you started acting, did you did you adopt a particular style of acting, or did you study like Stanislavski or method or any of that, or did you find your own path? Can you talk about that a little bit?
I think for me, what always stuck with me was Uta Hagen. And with Uta Hagen, I think her style is I think it's substitution. So, you'll
Right.
be learning,
Right.
you'll be learning the text, you'll be learning, the ins and outs of the scene, and you try to bring things from your own personal life to endow,
Right.
whatever that line is, whatever is happening in the scene. And that always helped me the most in terms of, I think, giving a genuine performance and truly
Mm-hmm.
connecting,
Mm-hmm.
connecting to the text and connecting to what's happening in the scene. And then, there were other methods that I learned when I was in college, in terms of, I mean, Udahagen was one of them. There was something called viewpoints where, you try to match the mood and the tone of whatever's happening with your character with your body and
Right.
your movement. So
Right.
there's that as well.
Right.
But
Right.
I think for me, if I'm gonna do it,
From
it's
here.
gotta come from here. I
Yeah.
can't be fake, I can't be phony with
Right.
it.
Right.
I've gotta be honest, and I'm always
Right.
reaching for honesty in my work.
Right.
So
So, like you, I learned it as well in high school and college. I also, as I was doing some assistant director work, I also did some acting, and so I learned it as sense memory.
mhm, mhm.
And right, so and and for anyone here that may not know or have heard that phrase before, what we're discussing, sense memory is you take a memory from any point of your life. If you want something you're happy to happen to you, something sad to happen to you, and then you use that memory to apply it in regards to acting or in regards to a scene that you're doing. And once I realized, I always knew I didn't want to really act, but I started to adopt that for writing. And so I would go to points of my life and use sense memory. What I call it is sense memory, but for writing. And I did that a lot with the Cisco book. And to be really quite honest, I would write scenes, and after I would write a scene, I would bawl. I would just cry for like a good 20, 30 minutes, man,
Yeah.
to the point where I would have to I would write a really emotional scene, and then I'd have to stop either for the day or watch comedy for
Yes.
just to bring myself
You gotta bring
right.
yourself down, and you have
Right, you
to,
gotta bring right.
you gotta cleanse yourself because, you're
Right.
at that point, again, because if you're trying to, make it honest, make it
Right, because you're
sincere.
trying to tap into something that's real and honest. Right.
Yes, your body
Right.
is a conduit at that
Right.
point. You are a
Right.
conduit for
Right.
all of that stuff that you're taking in to get to the place where you need to be
Right.
in your work. So, you absolutely have to, especially, with, I mean, with actors, with writing, when it gets to that place to where you are feeling the residue of it
Right. Right.
after it's done, that's when, you gotta know your body and go, "Okay, let me take a minute
Let
to
me right. Right.
come down."
That
I
yeah.
mean, what was it? Uh, I think it was Nana Visitor who was talking about working with Avery Brooks, and she said, Avery would say in, when he was directing, "We're waiting for God to show up
Right.
in the
Right.
process." And for example, in Far Beyond the Stars, when he has
And that
that
scene
moment,
at the end,
that
right?
scene that we
That
know about
moment,
where he
that
says
right,
it's
right,
real, he goes down to the floor, and Nana said, "Okay," as the actor, I was waiting for him to come out of it, and I said, "Oh, he's not coming out of it,"
he's
and I
not
know
coming out.
what that's like, but that's
Yes,
because
yes,
you're using your
yes,
conduit, you're using your
yes,
instrument.
yes. So staying with that, and just I'll talk about my experience. I've written a lot of short stories. Cisco autobiography is my first novel. I've written a lot of short stories, and so I've gone there in sense memory for my short stories, but I've never really went all the way,
Mhm.
because I felt like I could accomplish an emotional scene without that, without just diving in fully,
Yeah.
completely. But for Cisco, because I'm writing a man's life, I just went all in. And
Mm.
so because I went all in, it was a lot like Mr. Brooks in that scene where it was harder for me to come out. So have
Yeah.
you had moments like that where you've gone all in and it's been harder for you to come out, or that it just stayed with you after the fact? And is there any kind of are there any of those moments that we may have seen in anything that you've done where that has been the case?
I will definitely say there are 2 roles so far that I can say that that's happened in. One was in a play called Dog Sees God, which is it's a dark comedy.
Mhm.
It's about the Peanuts characters, but
Okay.
they're in high school. And so it's all of the stuff that high school kids deal with.
Right.
And I
Right.
think the playwright didn't really have, the license to use the full-on names
Right.
of the characters from the Peanuts. So Charlie Brown is called CB.
Okay.
Schroeder, who's the one that plays the piano,
Right. Right.
is called Beethoven.
Fits.
Um, and I can't remember the names of the other characters, but um, my character Beethoven is
Oh, I
gay,
can see you as Schroeder. Yeah. Right. Yeah, right. Okay.
and
That's great
he's
though.
bullied for being gay. And
Right.
long story short, Charlie Brown and Schroeder end up having a thing.
Okay.
And there is a scene where Pigpen, who is the kid with the dirt flies
They're
around him,
flying around him. Right. Pigpen. We all know Pigpen. Right. There's
he
always
ends
like.
up being like this football jock that's like picking on Beethoven.
Ah.
And unfortunately he like smashes his hands, so he can't play the piano anymore.
Oh.
And so we were trying to achieve something in one of the scenes. And so my director Sean had me and the actor that was playing Charlie Brown, we improvised a scene
Right.
of Charlie um, seeing Beethoven in the hospital after his hands have been wrapped up. And I after doing that scene, I was no good. Like,
Right.
I
Right.
was no
Right.
good.
Right.
I was sobbing walking to my car.
Right.
Like, I was a mess. And then,
Right.
my
Right.
friend Sean, who was like, one of my mentors, he said, "Do not go home like this."
Right. Wow. Yeah.
Like, "Go in your car, sit down, but do not drive home like this."
Yeah. Yeah. I can
And then
understand.
the second one was, a play called, um Man's Favorite Devil's Plan, and I did that play about 2 years ago, and it is about these, black, hotel workers working in an all-white hotel in, like,
Mhm.
1938, I believe, in Los
Mm.
Angeles, 38,
It's an interesting time
and
period.
the theme is, no one just does someone a favor.
Right.
Someone is always asking for something. It's never free. Someone's always getting something from somebody.
Sure.
And
Quid
so
pro
it's how
quo.
like this white hotel owner was manipulating all of these black hotel workers,
Right. Right.
saying, well, if you want me to do this for you, what are you going to give me? What are you going to give me? And the directing style that the director, Julian C. White, that he had for that play it was always about nuance and always making
Mm.
the discovery in the moment. In
Mhm.
rehearsal, whether we were uh, doing a performance, it was always about making it honest in the moment. So it's like, well, if you're going to sit down over here, maybe you don't sit down on this line. Maybe you sit down on this line.
Right.
Or maybe this is how you're feeling that day, and maybe this is how the line comes out. But it was always about authenticity and honesty. And what I'll say about that show is I'm always thinking about, what if I did it that way? Or what if this happened in this? I'm like, my mind still, 2 years later, I'm still thinking about that play. I'm still thinking about it.
That's great. That's
Yeah.
great. I can understand that though. I'm the same way. Even things that I've written and published, I'm still thinking about. Oh, I could have edited it this way or done it this way. I want to talk about some of the things that you've done of your own. But before that, I want to kind of make leapfrog, and I want to talk about the work you've done. I guess on television, All American for the CW and for All Mankind. What were those experiences like? Was that a conscious decision that you've made, to go from theater and to go to television and to film to other things? Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah. Well, I mean, honestly, I love to do all of it.
Sure.
Just all of it. Like,
Right.
I love to do my plays. I love to stay on stage and stay fresh and keep those skills sharp. Um, I just did 2 stage readings with the Roby Theater. It's an all-black theater company, with, Ben Guillory and
Right.
Danny Glover. They're the heads of the theater. Ben Guillory and Danny Glover, they met on the set of The Color Purple.
Right. Right. Right.
And that's if we have time, I'll tell my Danny Glover story, which is hilarious. But I try to keep my skills fresh by doing a stage reading or doing a play. So I'm always doing something with the Roby Theater Company. In terms of my own stuff, I, obviously I have 1701, a
Right.
Blerd Story,
Which
which
is
is
what
like,
we're gonna talk about for sure.
yeah, that's
Yeah.
my soapbox. I think it became my
It's
soapbox
so good.
because
It's
I
so
keep a lot of stuff. Not anymore, but like a couple of years ago, I would keep a lot of stuff in, and I was like, I don't know how to say this, and then 1701 became my way to say certain things that just wasn't coming out naturally. And as for All Mankind and All American, I was. It's very wild. My opportunities as an actor have never come from the route that
good.
you're supposed to
Right, right.
go.
No, I
Like,
understand because it's the same thing as a writer. It just comes sideways, kind of,
it
does it?
it comes sideways.
Yeah.
All American, that was my first ever speaking role,
Wow,
acting
wow,
job on a
wow.
TV show, and that happened during the pandemic when they were like, productions were shut down.
Right, right.
Um, Other times before that, like 10 years before that, I've been trying to get managers. I've been trying to get, couldn't get anything. And then all of a sudden, the pandemic is just the right
The
time for
right
you to
time.
get out
Right. The right time. That's
there.
amazing.
So that, I was very blessed to have that opportunity. And then for All Mankind, the wild thing about For All Mankind is that TV show, it just kept popping up over and over and over
Yeah,
again in my life. My dad was like, "Oh man, I love this show For All Mankind. You should check it out. Blah blah blah. It's this, it's that." I'm like, "Oh, okay." And this is like a year before.
hmm
And then when I used to work at this theater, worked at the box office, my boss during my interview, he's like a big like TV person, loves science fiction, and I would talk to him about Star Trek, Battlestar Galactica. He was like, "Oh man, dude, you gotta check out this show For All Mankind." He's like, "You know what? Like my brother writes on the show." I was like, "Oh, my dad brought it up too. Okay, I guess I gotta watch this."
hmm
And then, right before the Star Trek convention in 2022, I got the audition for All Mankind.
That's
And
dope.
so my manager's like send me email, "Oh, so I've got this audition for this TV show For All Mankind." I'm like, "What is it about this show? I what?" Okay, like obviously yes, but I'm like, it just keeps popping up. Um, so I mean, I had my line of techno babble. Thank you, Star Trek,
Thank you, Star Trek, for prepping you
for prepping
for
me.
techno babble, right?
Thank you, Star Trek, for prepping me for the techno babble. And also, I've said this before, but getting to see Denise and Michael Okuda on
Mm,
set the day that I got to do my
wow.
bit
Right.
was like the icing on the cake, and just so much joy. And also knowing Ron Moore, who worked on that show, obviously also working on my favorite Star Trek show, Deep Space
The space,
Nine.
of
You
course, of
know,
course. Right,
it
right.
was just it
Yeah,
was a
Kudos are
treat.
great. That's
It
for
was a
sure.
gift. I mean, so I say all these things I like to do. I do it all. Like I don't knock anything. Everything is a worthy experience.
So I'm gonna tell you a funny story. So, we all watch YouTube, and YouTube has this algorithm, and it gives us what we think we want to watch, right? So, I'm watching stuff about Star Trek as I do from time to time on YouTube, and this thing comes up, 1701, a Blerd Story. I'm like, oh, okay, that looks interesting. Let me like watch a few. Now, I didn't know you. I didn't know you from Adam at the time, right? I didn't know any. And I was like, this looks a little different. This looks a little weird. Let's check it out. So I watch it, and like 2 minutes, I'm in. I mean, I'm in. And I'm like, oh, this is really good. I'm like, oh, this guy just wrote it. This is really good. And I was busy as I always am, so I saved it, and I didn't have time to watch it. And I be quite honest, it was like, so many. We are inundated with so much material these
Oh
days,
yeah, yeah.
right? So I was like, oh. And then people told me, oh, you got to watch For All Mankind. You got to watch For All Mankind. And so I started watching it, and I think it was Yvette, SyFy Sisters. Yvette was like, "Oh, you got to watch it." And I'm like, "Okay, okay, I'll get to it." And so I started watching it, and then I'm watching one of the episodes. I'm like, "Dang, that guy's familiar. Where do I know this guy from?" And it got to me so bad that I froze the frame. I'm like, "I know this guy." And I was like, "Come on, dude." I was like, "Oh, wait a minute." And then I was like, wait a minute, is that guy from? And so then I went back and watched. By that time, you'd had like a few of the episodes, and I
Yeah.
watched all of the 1701 of Blerd Story episodes. I was like, well, that's dope. He's doing this. He's doing that. He's great. So that's my little story. So can you talk about how you became into Star Trek and how that led to 1701?
So for Star Trek, I've got my mom and my dad to thank for it. Like, if I remember correctly, my mom told me I was very much into to Sesame Street. I'm still into Sesame Street. Look,
Same
like
here. Yeah, yeah, yeah,
Me and
yeah,
Grover are
yeah, yeah,
cool.
yeah. I'm with you. I'm with you on that.
Know?
Yeah.
And so I was in my rocking chair for what she told me. I was in my rocking chair. I had my Grover doll. I was holding my Grover doll, and she put on it. It was either an original series episode or a Next Generation episode. But she
Right.
said, "I put it on the TV, and that was it.
That was it. It
That
was
it was like a
done deal.
done
Yeah.
deal.
Yeah,
You were
that's great.
sold."
Right.
And my dad, my dad just continued to encourage and nurture that Trekkie, that
Mm.
science fiction hunger. So Star Trek. We started watching Star Wars: A New Hope. I wasn't quite ready for it at the time.
Okay.
I think because what happened was we were at the moment with on the Rebel blockade runner, and
Mm.
everyone is shooting in the corridor, and Darth Vader's about to come out. And I remember this. I have this very vivid memory of saying to my dad, "Oh, it's so violent! I don't know, it's so violent."
Which it
I
is,
mean, and then
right.
like I fell in love with like all of it later on. Like I stand
Right.
Empire Strikes Back, Rogue One.
Right, bro. What? Yeah.
Listen, Star Wars Acolyte is also my show too.
Yes.
Star Wars
Yes.
Acolyte was my
Yes.
show. That was my
Yes.
show.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, and so, as I got older with Star Trek specifically, I would watch Deep Space Nine with
Mhm.
my dad. I would watch Star Trek with my mom,
Oh, that's great.
and my dad would be making comments about certain things. About, oh man, that's heavy. Oh, and I'd be 11 years old. I'm like, what is he? What's heavy?
What's
What's going
heavy?
on?
Right.
I
Because as
don't
a kid, that's
understand.
all going right. Right.
Right? Like
Right. Right.
you're still developing, you're still experiencing
Absolutely.
things. And I have this very vivid memory of watching Far Beyond the Stars with my
Mm.
mom when it had just came out.
Right.
And Avery, having that moment where he says it's real and he collapses, and my mom just like applauding on the couch while she's watching. I'm like, what is it that's affecting her so
Right.
much? And
Right.
that hunger and that curiosity for that effect that Star Trek had and the conduit that it was using in terms of allegory. I stayed with it. And
Mhm.
then I think in my own life, at a certain point, no, it was probably when I was like 7 years old, I just started seeing myself as a starship captain in my life. Like that's just what it was.
Mhm.
I was in my Starfleet uniform
Mhm.
and I was going to school. I was in my Starfleet uniform and I was experiencing this, and my mind was seeing
I love that.
this as, oh, this is the Borg, or these are the Klingons, or I'm experiencing this for the first time. I need my universal translator.
Right.
It's how I filtered life. And I think it was a coping mechanism sometimes for certain things. I think it was a safe way to process things that I couldn't quite process in real time.
Right.
And so when it came to finally doing 1701, I did a stage play first called The Universe of Matt Jennings,
Mhm.
where I used a lot of Star Trek references to explain a lot of self-identifying moments in my life.
Right.
And then my ex-boyfriend at the time had said, I want to say 5 years down the road, well, why don't you turn it into a show, turn it into something. I was like, oh, I don't know. Like, how would I even do that? That seems really complicated. And then I want to say like a couple of months later, I wrote the pilot for 1701. And you've got Matt who is the captain of the ship. You've got the logic side of his brain, which is his friend Emerson. Also
Right.
my friend Emerson in real life too, who can be very logical and really have a great analysis of something. So he's the Spot character.
Mhm.
And then, have someone that I used to know, his name was Joel. And Joel was always like a very like impulsive, angry. No, he could be angry, and that was the Bones
The
character.
Bones character. Right.
That was
Right.
Bones. And so you've got um, these dueling personalities talking to Matt, trying to get him to make a decision about his life. And then, we snap back to reality, and Matt's in the real world and he's got to make that decision. Um, And I think as someone that has always held their tongue for most of their life and is now just starting to not hold their tongue,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
1701 became a safe place to talk about all of those things. I mean, being black and gay, being called white for liking Star Trek, being called white for the way that I spoke, the way that I
Right.
dressed,
Right. 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 Right.
experiencing racism within the queer community and not quite
Mm-hmm.
knowing how to process that, and
Right.
having those moments where I
That
was like,
must be weird.
wait,
Right.
this is another marginalized. How you gonna
How
marginalize in the marginalized?
right,
How you going?
how are we doing that?
Yeah,
Yeah,
how you
yeah,
do it?
yeah.
So we've got the situation where Matt goes to this guy's place and he finds out that this guy is like fetishizing Matt because he's black.
Right,
Like,
right,
we
right. I
pan
remember
over
that
to like
episode.
Do the
Right,
Right Thing and
right, right.
African fertility picture, um, and then we flip it and we talk about racism and the Borg being used as an allegory for racism,
Hmm. Hmm.
and Matt realizes that he's kind of been a part of that. He's been a victim of it, like everyone has in some kind of way. Michael Eddington in DS9's got that great monologue with Cisco where he says, the Federation is worse than the Borg. You assimilate people and they don't
Don't
even know
even
it.
know it. Right, right. It's true. The mark I think of great writing is when you're being immersed in content, in any medium, whether you're reading a book or watching a short or a film or anything, and watching the episodes of 1701 a Blerd Story, what I realized, and this is like after I probably was like on my second one, and I was like, oh wow, these are flowing really well, really effortlessly, and it feels, if they feel the subject matter, the way you've written them feels very easy, just almost simplified in a sense. But it's so difficult to do that. As a writer, I understand it's so difficult to do
It's
that.
it's not easy.
It's
And
not easy to
and
make it feel that way to anyone. So
yeah. I mean, the thing is that I mean, for one, thinking about putting things out there on things like YouTube, and you think about people's attention spans, like people are
right.
watching videos for like, 5 minutes. People are like, oh, I don't know,
Oh,
5 minutes, that's a
that's
lot.
5 minutes is a long time, right?
Right?
I don't know if I can spend that kind of time.
Right? Like that's how some people are. So it was like, I realized I had to keep it short
Right, right.
and I had to get to the point of what I was, what was the subject. So it's
Mm-hmm.
like the first one is just it's a coming out story, not about of someone being gay. It's like it's a coming out story of someone being a nerd. Like, the irony of
Right.
that. Like, that. Sorry, go ahead.
No, I was just saying. I was just thinking. I mean, you talk about your life as a gay man, but you're talking about the human experience.
Yeah,
So I mean, and I'm all in because I'm human. You're human. It's the human
yeah,
experience, man. And so I'm just like, yeah, I get that. And doesn't in a lot of ways to me, it didn't matter. Um, Gender or anything like that didn't matter. It was just a human experience. It was, of
yeah,
course, and that's very easy for anyone to just connect with, But it's not easy to write. But
yeah.
it was done so beautifully. So I
Thank
really,
you.
oh, absolutely, I really enjoyed that, man. You've done what, four of them, five of them,
I have done 3. I'm
three?
writing 4
You're
right
reading,
now.
right, right.
I'm writing 4 right now, and 4 is, it's very interesting. Sometimes with me and writing, it's almost like you're a secretary in the room who's like Jill Scott's one of my favorite vocal artists,
Oh, yeah, yeah.
and
I saw her
she
a couple years ago. Yeah, she's
uh,
amazing.
she's a force.
Yeah.
She's a force. And she described the inspiration that she got for a song called And I Heard. And she said, I literally woke up in the middle of the night and she said it was like I was a secretary and I was just writing it down. And I was like, oh, that's what that is. And for the 4th episode, that's been a lot of the
That's great.
experience that I've had of just like sitting there and then all of a sudden hearing, oh, that's what oh, okay, or oh, that's like, or like me being on the toilet going, oh, that's what
Yeah,
that
that's what
was. And then like,
that.
and it's funny because I've had moments where I've been talking about certain things in the queer community that have like upset me
Mhm.
and I'll go on a rant And then I say to myself afterwards, "Oh, that's that monologue for that person. That's what that is." You know, it's been a very it's been a very fun experience to continue to write and continue to tell these stories. It's very rewarding.
And I'm sitting here and I'm like, well, you're writing these and you're acting in them, but you're also directing these, which is I've always wanted to direct, and I haven't done it as of yet. I'm going to do it at some point. But you direct this as well. What is that like? What was your first directorial experience like?
My first directorial experience was when I was in college, and I took a directing class in college. And oh God, I can't remember the name of the play that we were taking scenes from, but I remember coaching the actors, and I think reaching for a performance, reaching for some subtlety in the
Mm-hmm.
performance, and just reaching for honesty as well. And I think watching them also help me, as as well as an actor, watching the actors try to take the note and go, okay, how do I do this? I'm thinking, oh, okay, that's what that is. And
That's what, right.
right.
Yeah,
um
yeah, yeah.
and then I remember there was the final project for that directing class where you had to write your own scene and tell your own story and direct the actors as well. And that was a different thing, I think, because it was like I was directing myself just because of the scenario that the character was in. Long story short, it's basically um I may have called the scene The Muse, but you
Okay.
have this guy that's this musician, and he is just frustrated in his apartment. He's throwing everything around, everything's in shambles, but it's because he can't make sense of what's in his brain. And you have the muse come in behind him while he's just a heap on the floor, and she kind of like plays with him, touches his head, and she leads him to the guitar. He picks up the guitar and she starts playing with his fingers while he starts to hit notes on the guitar
Nice. Right.
until it becomes just a joyous tune, and that's how it ends. um and so I mean, that was obviously an extension of me,
Right.
and again, getting to watch myself in a way uh come to life, um was, I think, it helped me as a director, because I think I became a better actor after directing. Like,
Oh,
and they say the same
you
thing as
must.
well. When
Right.
you act, you become,
You better
so
director and director. Yeah.
now in terms of production, I'll be honest with you. Production now, that's a whole different thing, because
Yeah, that
this
must
isn't
be really
just,
hard, right?
yeah, because you're not just writing a scene and putting it up on stage. I mean, that's challenging too, but there's storyboards, which I love making storyboards. They're so fun. um I love drawing storyboards. My dad got me this
I wish I could.
storyboard book, and I've just
Right.
been like going through those,
And
making my
just
stuff.
wow.
And like, I'll take my time with my pictures too. Like, I think it's Guillermo del Toro that does that a lot, where
Yeah, he does. He
it's
does.
like
Yeah.
artwork, and I love that.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
you got your storyboards. You've got your script that you're writing. You've got like your shot list. You've got the props. You've got like, well, how am I going to put money into this? You've got your cast that you're working with. My cast is, they're my friends who,
Hmm.
God bless them. Just like, well, let me go on ahead and do this little thing that Matt's doing. I'll dress up in a star. Let me go on ahead and do this.
Right.
Um, my friend Emerson again, who is very much
That's great.
the logic mind in my life.
Right.
My friend Sammy plays the Bones character, very talented. My friend Brandy plays Tia, and Brandy is or Tia is a marriage of my friend Brandy herself.
Okay.
Like the
Right.
way that conversation plays out in the third episode, where she's like, all the the context clues in his house,
Isn't that the
and
Borg one?
yeah,
Right. That was great. That was great. I
and
watched it twice.
that's a conversation that her and I would have already.
Right.
Just
Right.
so when I like approached her and said, hey, so I keep hearing your voice.
Right.
Do this. She's like, I don't know. Let me read it. She said, okay. She said, this is basically us. I'm like, yes. Um, So, a lot of that is Brandy, and it's also my friend Thea. My friend Thea, who's been one of my friends since I was like 11 years old, 7 years old. And Thea has always been like, she was out there 13 years old protesting the Iraq war.
Oh wow,
Like she
that's
was.
great. No, that's great.
And so like there's, we have that side of Thea
Hmm.
in that character, because she's talking about picketing and this and that.
Right,
She's got her Black Women Matter shirt on. And so that's from my friend Thea. So
right.
um my I'm very thankful to have a supportive base
Yeah, it's really
uh
important.
that just said, let's do this, let's go for it.
That's really important. So let me ask you, because I'm thinking about all this, and I'm curious as to what sparks you to create a new thing, because I know for me, sometimes I get wild ideas and I go down alleys and avenues, and then I'm like, oh, that's not good, that's not good. And for example, I've been wanting to do a novel of my own for a while, and I've been throwing out ideas that were really, really bad. And then I went to Worldcon and I came up with an idea, and I was like, "Oh, this is a really good idea." And so I was talking to a friend of mine's while I was in in Europe. I was talking to him. He was here in the States for like 4 hours working out the idea because it just happened,
Mm,
from and but then that creativity, that creative moment, if I had ignored it, I wouldn't have started onto this new thing.
yeah.
So can you talk about how does that happen for you? When does that happen for you?
It's I can't quite explain it. It just happens.
Right.
I think it's that thing again where it's like I say, like with Jill Scott, she would say it was like she was a secretary, and she was just writing it down like, oh, okay, okay. And um it's yeah, I'll tell that Danny Glover
Oh,
story.
yeah. So right after that,
Yeah, I'll
thank you
tell
so
Danny
much,
Glover
Sabrina. So
story.
yeah, do the Danny Glover story. That's dope. See, that's sci-fi sisters dope. So yeah, do the Danny Glover story after you say that,
Yeah.
please. Yeah.
But it's really just it's like hearing a voice and going,
Right.
"Oh, okay, let me write that down and let me see what that looks like." I think it's also sometimes it's storyboarding too. Like if you
Storyboarding.
visualize
Yeah, I
it,
wish I could. Yeah, but
like that
yeah.
that will help you out.
Do you
Um
vet them in your head too? Like, do you vet? Oh, that's not good, or this one is gonna be
I'm
good.
trying to not. I do it though.
Mm.
Because
Hmm.
especially when
Hmm.
it comes to like filming stuff, I'm like, "Ooh, budget. I don't know. Ooh, I don't know." Right? Like the
Right.
money, it comes down to the money, but I'm like, "No, I have to get the idea out first.
Right.
I can't
Right.
censor myself now. I've got to
No.
get
Right.
the idea
Right.
out."
Right.
And so it's really kind of just a matter of being in a moment of download. It
Hmm.
could be anything, a bit of text. There's
Right.
I mean, for example, with writing this fourth episode right now,
Hmm.
I had a vision of, I don't know if anyone's seen Bring It On.
Oh
Um,
yeah, I've
but
seen it. Yeah,
I, I
I'm
I
sure
just
people
had
have
a
seen
vision of something from Bring It On where you have like
it.
the two different cheers. You've got the Toros doing
Yes.
their Bert, it's cold in here, da 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 da, and then you got the Clovers going, I said Bert, it's, and I was like, oh, that's interesting. And then that became a thing, right?
Wow.
In
Right.
the
Right. And with
so
the Trek theme to it,
there's
basically.
what I will say about the fourth episode is Klingons and drag queens,
Oh
Klingons
man.
and drag queens. And I mean, what has been very fun with this, writing this specifically, is just doing the research of like drag culture and ball culture
Oh right.
and
Right. Right.
Klingons.
Right.
And I mean, there's literally an
Right.
episode, I think it's the first episode of Pose, where they're at a ball and Billy Porter's character is, doing his MC thing. And I can't remember who it
I've done
is.
research on this. I know what you're talking about.
Yes.
Right. Right.
And so she comes up to Billy Porter and whispers in
Yes.
his ear, and then Billy is like, "We
Yes.
have a challenge, lady and
We have a chat.
gentlemen. What house
Yes.
do you come from?" And Klingons, right? Klingons,
What house do you come from,
what house do you come
dude?
from? We've got a challenge, right? Like it's
That's
it
smart.
is, and I will,
That's
and
slick. Yes, that's
it's
great.
wild. And there was literally, because I went to a ball
Right.
in June. I went to
Right.
a ball, and the MC had a line before the ball started, and it was so perfect, and it's going in script. But the line, he said literally, "Remember to play, slay, and destroy." And I said, if that ain't Klingon, you
Clear
know what?
out.
So when I say Klingon and drag queens,
That's great. I love it. I can't wait now. I can't wait. I can't wait. Yeah, I can't wait. So let's hear this Danny Glover story, please.
okay, so the Danny Glover story. So here's the thing. It was I was doing a show called No Place to Be Somebody.
Okay.
Um and oh god, what was the name of that character that I played? I can't remember his name. But long story short, it was the last day of the show. I go into the men's dressing room,
Mm-hmm.
and it's right off of like Spring Street in downtown LA. And so I go downstairs, and I see someone just like laid out on on a cot in the middle of the dressing room. And there are people that are homeless that are walking around the area. And so I'm like, okay,
Right.
maybe somebody got in, probably
Mm.
trying to find a place to sleep. Oh
Right.
boy, let me
Right.
go up, let me go tell whatever. And then I like walk over a little bit, and it's like Danny Glover just passed out, laid down, just on the cot. And I was like, and so one of my other actors in the cast, he came in, and I was like, he said, "Yeah, I know, it's Danny Glover." I was like, wait, what?
Wait.
And that's when I found out that Danny Glover was like one of the other heads of the Roby Theater
Right. Just
with Ben Guillory, who's like the artistic director. And so, long story, like get up, we do the last show, and then we go up to the office for the Roby Theater, and we have
right.
like some champagne, happy closing. And Danny Glover, like, I walk over to him, and he's like, "I played your part when I was 30 years old."
That's a good Danny Glover too, man. That's a good. Yeah, that's good.
Oh
Yeah,
man,
yeah.
that
Wow.
was that was wild. That was
Wow.
wild. Yeah.
Wow. So we have some time left. I want to know, as an artist, I'm always challenging myself, and
Mm.
I don't know an artist that doesn't, in some respects, challenge themselves, right? So, what is it that you haven't done yet that you want to do, or what is the challenge that you want to undertake that you haven't done yet?
I think as an actor is just more honesty in the work. Honesty,
Mm-hmm.
honesty, honesty, honesty. I think that's a big thing that I need.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so, I do the best that I can to, even if I'm filming myself doing something, to I'll watch it. I got to be careful not to obsess, because that can happen too, especially when you're
Right.
doing a self tape.
Mm.
Um, but I try to watch it, and I try to look for those moments of phoniness or fakeness or acting. You
Right.
don't want to act. You don't want to act up a storm. You just want to be honest. So honesty as an actor is something I'm always reaching for. I think as someone that is writing their own material, I think it's also honesty.
Mm-hmm.
Also honesty in the way that the characters talk.
Mm-hmm.
I think making sure each character has a specific voice and that they don't all sound similar. Um, I think again, the challenge of with the shorter format of these episodes,
Right.
trying to get the point across with simplicity in the lines
Mm-hmm.
without making it too complex. Um, and also, like, I think the bravery of taking that next step and to doing something bigger, doing a feature. Um, I mean, listen, if I had like Paramount money, like you can't
Mm-hmm.
tell me what to do money, like what my vision has always been would be to see these Star Trek characters pop up in Matt's life as ordinary people. But
That'd
then
be
when
dope.
we go to Matt's mind,
Mm-hmm.
that person is actually Seven of Nine. Like Jerry Ryan is actually Seven
It's
of Nine
actually
instead of
right.
like,
Right. Right.
or Whoopi Goldberg is playing a bartender, but it's actually Guinan, you know. Um, I mean, and like in
Let's
terms
make
of that,
that
you'd say,
happen.
huh?
Let's make that happen.
Listen, like this is my
I
thing, right?
mean,
Because like
why not for one of your, at least one for one of your shorts?
dude, listen. This is the thing. If we
This
were to
is
like make it in the canon world,
right.
and Parent was like, I don't know, it's not canon. You can't. Here's the thing. What if this was like Ben Cisco or Benny Russell
Right.
of the 21st century?
Century. Yeah.
What is Benny Russell in the 21st century dealing with? How does he see certain things? Maybe he's like a queer blogger like trying to get ahead, trying to write his paper, putting up social media. Like, how does Benny Russell see?
How does he see
How does he see
when he's working it through all that? How does he see those characters? And where does he see?
exactly?
Right, yeah, yeah. No,
Like,
I'm
who?
with you
How
on
does he see the Borg? Does he see the Borg as a police officer
that.
in a police unit? Like, is that the
Right.
Borg to him?
That's
You
how he
know?
saw Ducat and Wayun, right?
Yes, exactly.
So I
Right. Like,
mean, they were detectives, right? So I mean, that's not a far leap. It's not a far.
it's
Yes,
not far. It's
it's
not
not a.
far gone. And he was
It's not
already in Far Beyond the Stars. He was already seeing people pop up.
right.
His characters pop up as he would see Dax, he would see Major Kira.
Right. His
Like,
father was a priest.
his come on now.
Yeah, yeah,
And
yeah,
like,
yeah.
what was I gonna say? And again, prophets operate outside of time. So we can
Right.
put Benny Russell
That's right.
anywhere in time that we want to. And that's the sales pitch, Paramount, and put us on it. And that's it. That's it.
That's it. And I love that. And I think regardless of the budget, regardless of what you're doing and how you're doing it, you're always talking about honesty and authenticity. And I think if you start and have a foundation of honesty and authenticity, then I'm not saying that the work will automatically be good, but it will automatically, or it will come from a place that I think people can identify with. And that's a lot of the work right there.
Yeah.
That's a lot of the acting, that's a lot of the writing, that's a lot of the directing. If it's honest and authentic, you're at least a third of or half of the way, right? Am I? Yeah.
Yeah, no, I think you're right. I think you're
Yeah.
right. It's like, and I think that's the thing that I was taught when I started taking my acting courses in college. We were doing a Brecht play. Can't remember the name of the play now, but um, first day of rehearsal, he brought all the cast into the room, and he said, "We all need to think of the reason why that we are doing this show. If we
Right.
don't have a reason why we're doing it, we're not doing it."
Right.
And I was like 18 at that point going, "Oh my god, but all I did was High School Musicals and we were just having fun. What do you mean I have to have a reason to do this?" Um and I think that very much informed me doing and creating stuff down the road, is like the why.
The
Why am I
why.
doing it? Why? Yeah.
Have you ever thought about like prose, short stories or long form novel, beyond the scripts?
No, honestly, no. It
You
hasn't.
should. You should. You should. You really should. Because you have all the ingredients, man. Acting, the directing, I'm sure, you already see things in a visual format. I did, that's how I started a lot of AD work, film work, so when
Mm,
in writing now, my writing is very visual, right?
because you
Right, so
interesting.
I
Yeah.
really think you should, man. I really think it would really and then on top of that, you have your own particular and unique style and flair. Just in this conversation, is obvious. It's obvious in your work.
Yeah.
Yeah, I would say at least start with like some short stories and just see where it goes. I think you would just soar. That's just my personal opinion, but
I appreciate that.
yeah,
Thank
and I
you.
wouldn't say it if I didn't. I would just keep my
No,
mouth
I
shut.
think yeah.
I'm just yeah, but I for sure at least explore it, and it's another tool in your toolbox, right?
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
even if you do it and then you don't like it, maybe 10 years from now you're like, oh, maybe I can pull that back out again.
And find something. Yeah. And that's how it is.
That's right.
And I guess thinking about it, art isn't linear. It's not a
It's
linear
not. It's
it's
not.
not a linear
It's
thing.
not. I equate it to having tools in the toolbox, and I still pull things out from when I first started. I'm always learning. I think if you're not learning, then you're not growing.
Right,
So
right.
this conversation is helping me learn. So I mean, yeah,
Yeah.
this is some really great stuff. We're coming to a close. I want to know, for inspiration, is there anything that you read or watch, or is there a film, is there a book, is there anything that you've read or watch, or do you have like a favorite film or book?
Ooh, okay. Let's see. If we're gonna talk about favorite films that always kind of like
Sure.
spark something, it's gonna be
Mm-hmm.
The Matrix.
Oh, okay.
The
That's
Matrix is always in there.
why.
Um,
Why?
I think I love to see characters take charge of their lives and create the world that they want to create. I
I like
love.
that. I like that.
I think another one is I don't know if anyone's seen it. It's this movie called Hello, My Name is Doris.
No, I haven't seen it.
So Hello, My Name is Doris is about this woman working. She's probably in her 60s, working at like an advertising agency or something
Okay.
in New York, but she has been living most of her life very passively, and she just gets walked on for most of
Ooh.
her life. And she meets like her new boss, who's like in his 30s, is this hot guy or whatever. She falls in love with him, but they end up hanging out and spending time together, and he kind of brings her out of her shell
Right,
a
right.
little bit. And at the end of the movie, she long story short, she has this moment where she chooses herself. And it's those coming of age stories of that person choosing themselves, that person realizing that they don't have to take this, or forming the world like the Matrix, forming the world into whatever they want, and
Right.
going past what they know, past what they've restricted themselves to.
There is no spoon.
There is no spoon. V for
There is no
Vendetta is
spoon.
another one. Obviously
Oh,
very timely, but V for Vendetta is another one.
that's a really good one. Yeah.
Evie's journey
Oh,
of being so so beaten down mentally
mm-hmm.
to the point that it ends up being a facade, but
Right, but
she's at that point where she's
yeah,
going to be executed, and they're
it's an
the
intense film.
stormtroopers are like,
Yeah,
hey,
yeah.
well, you choose life, you choose death, whatever. And she says, no, you want to take me out? Let's go.
Right,
And I love, it's just that, again, that character taking charge, changing the reality into what they want, or having that moment where they square up
right.
instead of always shying away. They square up.
Instead of giving into fear
Fear.
to come back around, right? Instead of
Yes.
right, do not give into
Yes.
fear, right? Lean
Right.
into, say no to fear. I think even Burnham says that at the end of
Yes.
the first season
At the
of
end of the first
Discovery,
season, the only
right?
way to defeat fear is to
Is to
tell it
say
no.
no,
Yes. Right. Right.
which is what Star Trek does, which just comes all the way around to what we're
Right.
discussing. Do you have a book? Do you have a
Oh,
book or?
let's see. So so obviously I love autobiography of Captain Sisko. That's the
Oh,
fastest that I
wow!
ever. That
Thank
is
you,
the fastest I have ever read a book. I read that so fast.
thank you, man. Appreciate
So
that.
I'm like, I'm not being phony, like,
No,
for
no,
real.
I right, yeah.
I
I
read
appreciate
that
that.
fast.
Thank you.
Um
Wasn't fast to write. Thank you.
it's I went through that.
Thank you.
I love self-help books. So Ian Van Zant.
Mm,
That's how you say it, right? Ianla?
I'm
I
not
believe it's
familiar with
Ianla
that.
Van Zant.
Okay.
She had a TV show for a little while too, but she's like a life coach.
Okay.
Her book is called, I think it's called Truth. Is it
I'll
called Faith or Truth?
I'll
Can't
check it out.
remember, but I read that during the pandemic. I love self-help books. Um, so I think mostly self-help books are like my thing.
Okay.
And also what's really been fun to read is Mother of Black Hollywood.
Oh,
Jennifer Lou.
I have the audio, which is just like to hear her. She's phenomenal.
I'm reading. When you read the book, you can hear.
Right, but I can really, but yes, I know what you because she's amazing. So
She is something else.
she is something else. She
So
is something else. Thank you so much. This has been a wonderful, wonderful hour. It seems like more, but we have to do this again, Matt.
yeah,
This has been
yes,
right. This has been fun, and we do it. We could do it for the show. We could do it off the show. We just need to do it again.
I
Multiple times.
agree. I would
Yeah,
love
this
to
is a lot of fun.
come back.
This is a lot of fun. Oh, and before I forget, I want to tell everyone that my last show for the year will be November 20th. And for my last guest, for chapter 4 of Soul of the Story, I will have none other than the phenomenal Nana Visitor. And we'll be talking about her new book. So this is going to be a lot of fun to do.
Oh
And
man, I'm looking forward to that.
and Matt, thank you. You're actually my first actor on Soul the Story. So
Oh, honored.
Yo, I'm on it. Thank you so much, and we're definitely gonna have you again. This has been a fantastic hour. Thank you so much for
Thank
being here
you. And
tonight.
thank you, like everybody in the comments. I'm saying hi. I wasn't ignoring anybody.
Oh
I
yeah,
saw
yeah.
all
Thank you,
y'all.
everybody.
Hi.
Thank you so much, everybody. Thank you for being here and all your great comments. We really appreciate it. Thank you so much.
Yeah.
It was a lot of fun. Over.